Coming up on Arirang News, the coronavirus pandemic hits South Korea's industrial production. The slump in demand caused manufacturing output to fall 6% in April, its biggest decline since 2008. Starting next month, South Korea will relax its rationing system for masks so that people can buy them any day of the week. Students, now back at school, will be allowed to buy up to 5 a week. And South Korea's drug regulator is going to consider the use of Remdesivir to treat the coronavirus based on positive results in clinical trials. Originally a drug for Ebola, it's been found to shorten the recovery time for COVID-19. It's 5 o'clock p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. Starting next month, South Korea's public distribution system for masks will allow face masks to be bought any day of the week. Until now, everyone had an assigned day, depending on their year of birth. The Ministry of Food and Drug Safety said the general public will be allowed 3 masks per week, while students under 18 can buy up to 5, now that they're going back to school. Pharmacies and other vendors will still check ID cards, though, to enforce the limits. Mask supplies have now stabilized, with South Korea producing almost 15 million a day, 4 times the number it had back in December. And with the weather heating up, the government's planning to double the number of dental-type masks, which are thinner, and consider exports as well. South Korea may soon approve the use of Remdesivir as an emergency treatment for the coronavirus, based on positive results in clinical trials. The quarantine authorities said Friday that they're going to ask the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety to allow the drug to be imported, especially since there are no other antiviral medications that can be used just yet. The head of the KCDC said the drug regulator will make a decision based on its own assessment. Remdesivir was originally developed to treat Ebola, but has been found to shorten the recovery period for COVID-19 and lower the fatality rate. The city of Seoul will hold a 5-day global summit next week online, looking into challenges cities will face in the post-coronavirus era and to share the know-how of cities in responding to the pandemic. There will be 10 major topics, ranging from climate change and quarantine measures to education and welfare, to be discussed by the mayors of more than 40 cities around the world and some 100 city officials, experts, and scholars. The video conference will be live streamed online by the Seoul City government's YouTube channels, as well as by Arirang TV, with simultaneous interpretation in English and Korean. For this, the city set up a web conference studio with big LED screens. People will only be let into the studio wearing masks and after they've had their temperature taken. The Defense Ministry in Seoul has confirmed that the South Korean military and U.S. Forces Korea did transport missiles and other items in the early hours of Friday to the U.S. base in Seongju County, where the THAAD missile defense system is based, to replace worn-out equipment there. But the ministry denied that it was a covert move to install more launchers. There had been speculation because the transport operation was carried out overnight and unannounced. The items brought in include THAAD-guided missiles, power generators, electronic data collection equipment, and air conditioning and heating equipment for troops. South Korea sent notification in advance to China, which has long opposed the presence at the THAAD site. The USFK said the operation was a regular resupply to support the Allies' defense posture. South Korea has managed to contain the pandemic relatively well, but it's still put a major dent in the economy, especially manufacturing, because of falling demand. Kim Sung-min reports.
South Korea's overall industrial output in April fell for the 4th month in a row, with the nation's manufacturing sector taking the biggest hit from COVID-19. According to Statistics Korea on Friday, the country's overall industrial output plunged 2.5% on-month in April. By sector, manufacturing saw a sharp on-month fall of 6%, its largest drop since 2008 on the back of dwindling demand for semiconductors and automobiles. The operating rate also dropped by 5.7 percentage points to around 69%.
While the service sector and retail sales experienced a light bump as the spread of COVID-19 slowed in April compared to February and March, the COVID-19 outbreak and lockdowns in the U.S. and Europe led to a 6.4% drop in manufacturing production.
Retail sales jumped 5.3% from the previous month, and facility investment posted a 5% increase on month. While the country has not escaped the impact of COVID-19, the government has also given a positive outlook for the following 2 months. The official added that the government expects to see better data in May and June, in which reflects the country's shift towards distancing in daily life measures and the governmental policies such as emergency relief payment. The Finance Ministry announced Friday that the government will continue to promote what's being called the Korean version of New Deal along with other measures so that the country can become one of the global leaders in the post-COVID-19 era. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
And to help local small and medium-sized exporters struggling to deliver freight due to the pandemic, the South Korean government's providing chartered cargo flights. The Korea International Trade Association has joined up with the Ministry of Trade to arrange 2 special cargo flights bound for Narita, Japan and Frankfurt, Germany. The flights are scheduled to depart South Korea on Saturday. They're being offered to firms at about 25% cheaper than the market price. This will be the second time that South Korea has provided cargo flights, having sent them to China and Indonesia last month. Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for making time on this Friday.
Thank you for having me today.
On Wall Street, the markets were down Thursday after President Trump said he'd be holding a press conference Friday local time about China. Investors expecting tensions to rise. What's the story in the global markets today?
Yes, as you said, major U.S. stock index futures are edging lower in the potential for the President Trump announcing a press conference on Friday about China. If you look at the overall market movement yesterday, markets were quite strong until the announcement that Trump will be making the conference. Most of the indices were up by somewhere between 1 to 2%, but right after that announcement, it dropped. And the Dow Jones lost about 0.6%, S&P declined 0.2%, and NASDAQ was down 0.5%. Clearly, we're not sure what kind of announcement will be made by President Trump, and we're watching for that. And overall market globally were taking some toll. But as far as the Korean markets are concerned, they did quite reasonably okay. All in all, I think that we're not sure what kind of announcement will be made. And as for this announcement by China, it's not going to be a law that it will be implemented immediately. It's just that they might be able to do this. So we have to watch and see how things play out after the announcement of Donald Trump.
Well, now we do have the U.S. Secretary of State and others saying Hong Kong is no longer autonomous, that it's lost its special status and is effectively part of the mainland now. Hong Kong is still one of the major financial hubs of Asia. So if the U.S. decides to formally remove its special status, what happens to the financial markets?
Well, if that actually happens, it will be quite negative news, and that the dispute between U.S. and China will escalate even further. I'm not sure whether U.S. will be actually implementing quite aggressive measures until the actual presidential election in November. Nevertheless, they keep saying about during this conference that we're talking about the sentiment as well as some kind of policies that we made over the next several months. Clearly, once again, we're not really sure what kind of the measures will be made by Donald Trump, other than saying that it is a possibility, because the current situation-wise, the COVID-19 incident is making quite negative tolls for the economic growth, and both countries are making major policies to boost the economies. And if actually there are some kind of these measures come through and that results into higher inflations or any type of negative effects by these measures, then clearly the cost of the coming back from the COVID-19 will be quite heavy. So therefore, we're not sure whether there will be actual actions to be made, but they'll be talking about it, and we have to really wait and see what President Trump talks about tonight.
Well, now Korean stocks were down today, but managed to eke out a slight gain at the end. Lots of factors in play, including those tensions. Tell us about the markets domestically.
Yes. If you look at the South Korea, there are a couple of issues. Number one is that obviously with the China tension rising, Korea does get affected quite heavily in terms of the currency-wise. One's been kind of depreciating gradually, and it almost hit 1240 range. Clearly, that is putting a dent to the equity market. Also, there's a news about the COVID-19 cases jumping in 53 days at the record highest level. And clearly, widespread of the COVID-19 is making a fact in terms of the consumption recoveries. These factors are quite important at this point in time. But nevertheless, we will see more aggressive measure by the government in terms of the fiscal and monetary policies. Yesterday, there was a 0.25% rate cut. And going forward, there will be more fiscal policies to boost the economies. If that's the case, given the fact that Korea is doing quite better relatively to other countries, hopefully the equity market will be able to sustain, even though despite this concern about China and U.S. dispute.
All right, Mr. Yu, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for coming on. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. You too.
Now, vacations are on hold, of course, for people around the world, no less so here in Korea, but people are finding ways to see Korea's natural beauty while taking the recommended safety precautions. Our Ji-young has this report.
A mother of two, Seo Hye-won, and her family from Bucheon, Gyeonggi-do province have been postponing their trip for months. But after mostly being cooped up at home due to social distancing, they decided to escape to the great outdoors of Gangwon-do province.
Because of having to practice social distancing, this is our first family trip in 5 months. We had to pack extra masks and hand sanitizers, but it feels good to be out.
She added that her family chose to visit spots where disinfection work had been carried out and where fewer people would be around.
Instead of going to venues packed with people, those concerned about the virus are taking it easy among the birch trees while also complying with the coronavirus-related safety guidelines.
마스크 착용해 주시고 거리 두기 해 주시기 바랍니다.
Travel safety guidelines published by the Ministry of Culture not only include wearing masks and keeping a 2 arms length distance from others, but also paying online as much as possible and cooperating with other COVID-19 prevention measures. And while wearing masks, visitors appreciated the gentle rustling of leaves at the Wonderi birch forest in Inje, Gangwon-do province.
It's good to be out in nature where I can breathe in the fresh air. It's a little frustrating to hike while wearing a mask, but I'm keeping it on as much as possible.
A family from Daegu, Gyeongsang-buk-do province said their trip brought them even closer together while at the same time let them appreciate the beauty of nature.
We have rediscovered the preciousness of our country's natural beauty all over again.
According to a survey of 300 South Koreans carried out by online travel company Expedia, 77% said they're planning to travel to local destinations this year rather than go overseas. Ji-young, Arirang News.
And the Korea Cultural Heritage Foundation celebrates its 40th anniversary this year, so it's putting on a special show. In it, the performers summon an ancient god to symbolically ward off the coronavirus. Our Kim Bo-kyung tells us more.
Listen to the powerful beats coming from Korean traditional drums. An acclaimed dance master opens the performance named Cheoyong with the drum beats, which are said to ward off evil spirits. The master plays a bamboo wind instrument known as daegum. Then performers throw egg whites and sesame onto a blue fabric to summon Cheoyong, the god of dance.
By invoking the spirit of Cheoyong, the historical figure known to ward off evil, the performers hope this special performance could help send away COVID-19 too.
We all know greeting Cheoyong won't really get rid of the virus. Rather, following government measures is the best way. But by using Cheoyong, we wanted to deliver hope to citizens who have been struggling due to the COVID-19 outbreak.
Along with officials from cultural organizations, ambassadors from more than 10 countries were invited to come together to hope for an end to the pandemic.
I'm happy we are here all together hoping to overcome the pandemic. I hope this world can get back to normal soon to enable us to happily enjoy our cultural heritage.
Along with negative implications of those challenges, we humans are also learning and experiencing one very important reality. Borders and cultural differences shall not apart us from our universal commitment.
The audience, all sitting a seat away from each other, took part in the Thank You Challenge, making a hand gesture to show their gratitude for the efforts of medical staff across the country. At that point in the performance, Cheoyong appeared, as if to grant the people's wishes and remind them that the pandemic will one day be over. 김보경, Arirang News.
That brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.